For the past 5 months, I had been running on caffeine, stress, and pure determination. Late nights blurred into early mornings, and weekends disappeared into endless hours of spreadsheets. While my friends enjoyed their time off, I was glued to my desk, giving everything to one massive project, the kind that could completely change the course of my career. Finally, the work was finished. The client loved it. The presentation was flawless, and the deal was sealed. But the real reward came afterward. I sat at my desk, reading an email for what felt like the 15th time. Natalie, you went above and beyond. Consider these a personal thank you. Enjoy the game. Attached was a confirmation for 2 Super Bowl tickets, front row, 52-yard line. My heart raced. As a lifelong football fan, this was a dream I'd never imagined would come true. My hands trembled as I printed the email and read it again, just to be sure. The tickets had been sent to Bobby Clark, the senior partner at my firm, who usually handled client gifts. I imagined him walking into my office, handing them over with a rare smile, saying something like, "Well done, Natalie." That moment never came. 4 days later, Bobby walked into my office without knocking, carrying that usual air of smug superiority. Only worse. He leaned casually on my desk like he owned the place. "Heard you got some exciting news," he said, grinning. I smiled back, assuming this was the moment. "Yeah, I really appreciate it. I put everything into that project." He nodded slowly, almost amused. "You did. That's why I wanted to talk about the tickets." Something in his tone made me uneasy. "Right," I said carefully. Bobby let out a theatrical sigh, as if this was hard for him. "Here's the thing, Natalie. Clients don't always understand how corporate structure works. When they gave you those tickets, well, that was more of a gift to the firm than just to you." My stomach turned. "No," I replied, trying to stay calm. "The email clearly said they were a personal thank you. To me." He brushed that off like it didn't matter. "Sure, I get that. But in this business, it's about strategy. Relationships. I'm taking a potential investor to the game. It's a smart move for the company." I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. "What?" I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I made plans already. That reward was meant for me." Bobby smirked. "You should be grateful you have a job at all. That's the real reward." I gripped the armrests of my chair, trying to hold in the anger that threatened to break through. This wasn't about football anymore. It was about respect, and a line that had just been crossed. He patted my desk like I was some obedient intern. "You understand. Don't worry. There'll be more opportunities." I took a slow breath. Then I did something unexpected. I smiled, not a real one, but the kind of smile with sharp edges. "Enjoy the game," I said, voice smooth as glass. Bobby looked pleased with himself as he left my office, thinking he'd won. But he had no idea what was coming. The second he was gone, my fake smile vanished. My hands clenched into fists beneath the desk, nails digging into my palms. He thought he could just take what I had earned and get away with it. I sat there in silence for a moment, breathing deeply, calming the storm inside. If I was going to get even, I had to be smart. Emotional outbursts wouldn't work here. This wasn't over, not even close. I knew I had to be smart, and luckily for me, Bobby had just handed me the perfect opening. I opened the original email from the client and read it again, my heart racing as a plan began to form. Going after Bobby head-on wouldn't work. He had power, connections, and the confidence to bulldoze through anything. No, the best way to take him down was simple. Let him destroy himself. I sent a short, polite text to my client. "Hey, just wanted to say thanks again for the Super Bowl tickets. Meant a lot. Funny thing though, they ended up going to someone else at my firm. Hope we catch up soon." Less than a minute later, my phone buzzed. "Are you kidding me? Who took them?" I smirked. This was about to get interesting. I replied, playing it cool. "Not sure, honestly. I just know I never got them. No big deal, though." "No big deal? Those were for you. Let me handle this. Don't say a word." Bingo. I leaned back in my chair, nerves humming. This wasn't just a fight between me and Bobby anymore. Now it was Bobby versus the client. and I already knew who would come out on top. That afternoon, I started gathering intel. I didn't need to dig far. Bobby couldn't resist bragging. Around lunch, I overheard him in the break room. "Yeah, 52-yard line seats," he said loudly. "Taking a big fish with me. You know how it is, these kinds of deals are all about building the right relationships." I stayed out of sight, biting back laughter. The arrogance. The absolute stupidity. By Friday, the office was buzzing. Bobby was leaving early to catch a flight to the Super Bowl city. He walked around like he owned the building, smug, untouchable. I caught his eye in the hallway. "Big plans this weekend?" I asked, voice casual. He gave a crooked smile. "Oh, just making moves." "Enjoy the game," I said. And I meant it, because by the time his plane landed, the trap would already be set. Saturday morning, I got a text from the client. "Meeting set for Monday. Just follow my lead. Trust me." I smiled. I trusted him completely. Sunday passed. I didn't watch the Super Bowl, not because I didn't love football anymore, but because I was too focused on what Monday would bring. The real game. At exactly 8:10 a.m., Bobby strutted into the office. Sunglasses on, coffee in hand, radiating the kind of smugness only a man who thought he'd gotten away with something could have. He didn't even glance at me. At 8:40, a meeting invite popped up in my inbox. Subject: Client review. Attendance: mandatory. Location: Conference Room A. Attendees: Bobby Clark, Client Rep, Natalie. I clicked accept. Game on. I walked into the glass-walled conference room. The air was already thick with tension. Bobby sat at the head of the table, legs crossed, acting relaxed, but when the client walked in, that confidence cracked. He wasn't alone, a woman followed him, someone I didn't recognize. She looked calm, powerful, and completely out of place in our office. That made her presence all the more intimidating. "This is Kayla Anderson," the client said as they took their seats. "VP of Corporate Partnerships." Kayla gave Bobby a sharp, professional nod. He blinked, clearly rattled. "Oh, of course. Nice to meet you, Kayla." The client leaned forward, smiling, but there was no warmth in it. "Before we start today's agenda, I have a quick question," he said. "Natalie, how was the game?" The room fell silent. I tilted my head and gave a confused smile. "The game?" "The Super Bowl," he clarified. I furrowed my brow. "Oh." "I didn't go." The client's smile vanished. "That's strange," he said slowly. "Because I personally arranged for you to have 2 seats, right?" Bobby froze. A flicker of panic flashed across his face. He forced a nervous laugh. Yeah. See, there was a little mix-up. Natalie wasn't able to attend. The client didn't let him finish. "So, who did go?" Bobby shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. I took a client," he stammered. The client let the silence linger, sharp and deliberate. Kayla, the VP of Corporate Partnerships, cleared her throat. "Bobby, just to be clear, are you saying you took tickets that were given as a personal gift to an employee and gave them away without approval?" Bobby swallowed hard. The client cut him off again. I was looking forward to seeing Natalie at that game. It felt like a perfect thank you after all the work she put in. But imagine my surprise when I found out she never received the tickets. Bobby opened his mouth, then closed it again. He had no excuse. Kayla turned to me. "Natalie, did Bobby ever mention any company rule or policy that required you to give up those tickets?" I shook my head. "No. He just told me they were his now." The tension in the room thickened. Kayla exhaled sharply and turned her gaze back to Bobby. "You do understand that this isn't just a mistake, right? You've violated ethical standards and, frankly, this qualifies as corporate theft." Bobby's face drained of color. The client leaned back, disappointment clear in his eyes. "I don't think I can continue doing business with someone who would treat their team like this." Bobby suddenly sat upright, desperate. "Wait, let's just..." The client turned to Kayla, ignoring him. "I trust you'll handle the internal response?" Kayla gave a firm nod. Her face was unreadable. "Effective immediately." Bobby realized it right then. He wasn't just in trouble. He was done. I sat quietly, hands folded in my lap. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The silence in the room stretched uncomfortably. Bobby's usual smug expression had crumbled into something close to panic. Kayla leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. "Bobby, do you understand how this looks?" He swallowed again. He understood. Everyone did. The client shook his head. "This isn't about tickets anymore. It's about trust. About professionalism. When I choose to work with someone, I expect them to stand by their team, not take advantage of them." Bobby clenched his jaw and looked around the room, searching for someone, anyone, to back him up. The other senior partners were silent, avoiding eye contact. No one wanted to be associated with the mess he'd created. Kayla spoke again, her tone sharp. "Bobby, did you expense anything related to this trip?" He blinked.
What?
"Did you charge the company for the flight, the hotel, meals, transportation?" The look in his eyes gave away the answer before he said a word. The client gave a low chuckle, but it wasn't the kind that came from humor. "You used company funds to treat someone else to a luxury trip with tickets meant for Natalie?" Bobby straightened in his seat, trying to sound composed. "Listen, I understand how it might look, but I was thinking about the firm. I was cultivating a relationship with a potential investor." The client didn't let him finish. "What investor?" Bobby blinked. "Excuse me? Who exactly did you take to the game?" The client repeated, arms now crossed. Bobby opened and closed his mouth like a fish gasping for air. Kayla tapped her fingers lightly on the table.
Bobby.
"Answer the question." He hesitated, scrambling for anything that might save him. But I already knew the truth. He hadn't taken an investor. He hadn't taken anyone remotely useful to the company. He took his brother-in-law, a guy with no business connections, no deals, and no reason to be at the Super Bowl other than to drink beer and enjoy the front row seats. And Bobby had put the entire trip on the company's tab. The realization hit him visibly. There was no excuse. No way out. The client shook his head, tired and frustrated. Unbelievable. He turned to Kayla. "Please note that going forward, my firm will no longer do business with Bobby Clark." Bobby's head shot up. "Wait, that's not..." The client didn't even acknowledge him. "If you're assigning someone else to oversee my account, I'm open to discussing that." Then he turned to me. "Or, honestly, I'd prefer to work directly with Natalie from now on." I stayed calm, keeping my face neutral. But inside, I knew the game had just ended, and I had won. On the outside, I stayed calm. But inside, I was screaming with satisfaction. Kayla gave a small nod, tapping a few notes into her tablet. "Bobby, we'll be handling this internally," she said smoothly. "I suggest you take the rest of the week off while we review the situation." All the color drained from Bobby's face. He looked like he wanted to argue, but then he glanced around and saw the firm expressions on Kayla, the client, and everyone else in the room. He knew it. This wasn't just a slap on the wrist. It was the end. Without a word, he stood. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. Then he stormed out, the glass doors swinging shut behind him. Silence settled like a heavy curtain. The client turned to me, his tone softer now. "Natalie, I owe you an apology. I should have made sure those tickets got to you directly." I shook my head. "You had no way of knowing," I said, then glanced at the door Bobby had just walked through. "Honestly, this worked out even better." He chuckled. "I like the way you think." Kayla smiled, then slid a folder across the table toward me. "Natalie," she said, "since you've already been handling most of the responsibility on this account, we'd like to formally offer you a promotion." My breath caught. I looked down at the document, a new title, a big raise, and the kind of authority that placed me alongside the very people who once overlooked me. I glanced back up. "Are you serious?" Kayla nodded. "Absolutely. You've more than earned it." I smiled slowly, the weight of everything sinking in. "Then I accept." The client stood and reached out to shake my hand. "Glad to hear it. And Natalie, next time I get Super Bowl tickets, they're coming straight to you." I laughed as we shook hands. Bobby thought he'd stolen my reward. Instead, he handed me everything I'd been working toward, and the best part? It was still only Monday. Back at my desk, the office was buzzing. People whispered. They looked from me to the now empty corner office where Bobby used to sit. In a place like this, news spreads fast, and when a senior partner storms out of a conference room looking like he saw a ghost, everyone notices. I sat down, trying to hide the grin tugging at the corners of my mouth. My inbox lit up with messages. Congratulations, support, and plenty of what just happened from people who had only heard fragments. Then, a message popped up from Bobby himself. "What the hell did you do?" I stared at it for a moment, then typed back. "Me? Not sure what you mean. I thought you were making moves." No reply, of course not. I leaned back and looked down at the signed promotion letter on my desk. I had won, but I also knew Bobby wasn't the kind to give up easily. Just an hour later, it came. Subject: HR meeting. Immediate attendance required. I opened it, already knowing what this was. "Natalie, please report to HR immediately. This is a mandatory meeting." I frowned. Bobby wasn't going down without trying to drag me with him. I grabbed my notebook and headed to HR. The receptionist didn't even make eye contact, just pointed to the glass-walled room in the back. Inside, Tiffany from HR sat at the table, looking uncomfortable. Across from her sat Bobby. But the smugness was gone. He didn't look powerful anymore. He looked like a trapped animal, desperate and dangerous. Tiffany cleared her throat. "Natalie, have a seat." I did. Bobby leaned forward, his voice coated in fake concern. "Natalie, I hoped we wouldn't have to do this, but I need to bring up a very serious issue," Bobby said. I raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" He let out a dramatic sigh. "The firm has been reviewing some of your recent communications, and we believe you may have violated corporate confidentiality by sharing internal matters with an external client." I blinked. So this was his angle. Tiffany from HR glanced at me, then back at Bobby. "Bobby brought this concern to us this morning." Of course he did. This wasn't about policy. It was a last-ditch effort to flip the story and make me the villain, to save himself from the fallout. I tilted my head slightly. "And what specific confidential information are we talking about?" Bobby folded his hands in front of him. "The emails you sent about the Super Bowl tickets. That was an internal issue, Natalie, and you discussed it with the client." I let out a quiet, disbelieving laugh.
Right.
"So, a personal gift meant for me, that was taken from me, is now considered an internal matter." Tiffany winced at my use of the word taken. Bobby's jaw tightened. "I wouldn't call it stolen." I cut in. "Really?" "Because the client did. In front of everyone." Silence. I leaned back in my chair, calm but firm. "This isn't about confidentiality, Bobby. This is about you getting caught. And now you're throwing a tantrum because there were consequences." Tiffany inhaled slowly, choosing her words. "Bobby, I understand your concern, but after reviewing the facts, I see no actual policy violation on Natalie's part." Bobby's head snapped toward her. "Excuse me?" She calmly looked down at her notes. The client was the original sender of the gift. He had every right to ask where it went. Natalie did not share financials, company strategy, or any private details, only the status of something personally addressed to her. Bobby's face darkened. "So that's it? You're just going to let her get away with?" Tiffany sat up straighter. "Let's be clear, Bobby. You're the one under investigation, not Natalie." The words landed like a punch to the gut. He stammered, but Tiffany wasn't finished. "The expense reports are being reviewed. The client has officially ended their partnership with you. And now you're trying to retaliate against an employee the company just promoted." He had nothing left. No defense. No excuses. He had lost. Tiffany stood. "Bobby, I need you to leave the room." "Natalie, you're free to go." I calmly gathered my things. I didn't even look at him as I walked out. By the time I returned to my desk, the email had already gone out. Effective immediately, Bobby Clark is no longer with the firm. We wish him the best in his future endeavors. I read it twice just to be sure. Then, for the first time all day, I let myself smile. Bobby was gone, and I had won. But this wasn't just a personal win. It was a message, a warning to every arrogant boss out there. Never underestimate the people you think are beneath you. because they might be the ones to take you down. The office was quiet in that strange, tense way that follows something big. People were whispering, side-eyeing the now-empty corner office, stealing glances at me in the break room. But no one said a word out loud. A senior partner had been taken down in front of the whole company. And not by another executive. Not by a board member. By me. I sat at my desk, rereading the official termination notice. Bobby's name was already gone from the company directory. His office was locked. HR had already packed up his things. It was like he had never been there at all. And honestly, that should have been enough. But there was still one more thing I needed to do. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my client's number. He picked up on the first ring. "Natalie," he said, a chuckle in his voice. "I assume you've heard the news?" "I have," I replied, keeping my tone light. "Figured I owed you a thank you." He laughed, and I couldn't help but smile. The storm was over, and I had come out stronger than ever. "Don't thank me," I said calmly. "Bobby did this to himself. You just gave him the rope." I smirked, watching the words land. There was a pause. When he spoke again, his voice was steady, carefully measured. "Tell me something, Natalie. Are you really happy staying where you are?" That question stopped me. "What do you mean?" I asked slowly. "Let's look at the facts," he said casually. "You're the one who built this account from scratch. You did the work. The firm didn't promote you because they wanted to, they did it because they had no choice. And Bobby's exit? That was your doing." I leaned back in my chair, taking it all in. "I'll be honest," he continued. "I don't like your firm. I stayed because I liked working with you." I blinked, surprised. He gave a small chuckle. "So let me make this simple," he said. "Come work for me." My heart skipped a beat. "You've already proven yourself," he said smoothly. "You're smart and strategic, and you don't let anyone walk over you. That's exactly the kind of person I want leading my business strategy team." He paused, then added, "And just so we're clear, I'll double whatever your firm is paying you." I almost dropped my phone. Double? Not just a raise, not just a little more, double. I swallowed hard. That's a huge offer. He laughed softly. "It is. And it's what you deserve." I hesitated. Everything was happening so quickly. I had just been promoted. Was I going to walk away from that? But then I thought about the years I spent being overlooked, about my ideas being taken by people like Bobby, about how the only reason I got promoted was because the firm had no other option after a scandal. Did I owe them anything? No, I didn't. A slow smile spread across my face. "Send me the offer," I said. "I think I'm ready for something better." By the next morning, my resignation letter was printed and signed. I walked through the office with my head held high, ignoring the whispers and wide-eyed stares. Tiffany from HR looked up as I handed her the letter. "You're leaving?" she asked, stunned. I nodded. Got an offer I couldn't turn down. She glanced at the letter, then let out a low whistle. "Damn," she muttered when she saw the number. "Well, I can't blame you." I smiled. It was time. As I packed my things, some coworkers came by to say goodbye. A few were surprised, but many weren't. And just as I was about to walk out, I got one last text. It was from an unknown number. "Bobby Clark, enjoy your little victory. You just got lucky." I stared at the message, then typed back. Me. Luck had nothing to do with it. Then I walked out for the last time. A year later, I stood in my corner office, overlooking the city skyline. My name was on the door. My team respected me. My salary was more than I had ever imagined. But more than that, I was working with people who valued me. As I scrolled through my phone, a news alert popped up. Former executive Bobby Clark files a lawsuit against the firm and claims wrongful termination. I laughed out loud. He was still trying to win a fight that had ended long ago. I set my phone aside and leaned back, a quiet sense of satisfaction washing over me. For years, Bobby had climbed the ladder by using other people's work, pushing others down just to lift himself, and claiming victories that were never his. But in the end, he lost it all. As for me, I rose on my terms. I earned everything he tried to take. And that was the kind of justice that didn't need a courtroom. just time.